Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Audio Production Town Hall. My name is Brian Smithers, and I'm the Program Director of Audio Production here at Full Sail. We're glad you could join us today. Every month, you'll find us here weighing in on all sorts of issues that are of interest to audio production students. We've talked about drum miking and mixing and mastering. We've talked about the business of dance music. We've featured new software and hardware, and a lot of really cool people. So keep an eye on FS1 for every month's upcoming Audio Production Town Hall, and we hope you will make a habit of joining us here. This month, we're talking to a 2015 graduate of Full Sail, Alexandria Perryman. Alexandria is a producer at Will Media, which is a major podcast production company, but before that, she was an audio engineer at NASA, a feat that made many of us who had her in class jealous of her, and we offered to change jobs repeatedly. She never took us up on it, but we'll talk about all that and focus on her world of podcasting these days in our discussion today. So, Alexandria, welcome. We're glad you could join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So when you graduated, as I recall, you moved home and started looking for work and saw an ad from an unlikely place called NASA. Do I have that trajectory basically right so far?
Pretty much, right? There was a little gap where I worked in a recording studio before that, but yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
So one of the things that's always fascinated me about that fact is that we covered a lot of ground while you were a student here. We talked about digital audio, we talked about microphones and mixers, we talked about making records, and we talked about sound for film and television, but I don't recall us ever talking about sound for astronauts. Do you?
No, that definitely did not come up.
So to me, one of the great lessons that you embody that I think all of us should really take to heart is the fact that you really immediately recognized all of the way that your training and skills would transfer into the environment of working for a space agency.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it came from how I learned as a student. So I would, the way Full Sail was modeled is every class builds upon each other. So I took that in the workforce, that same concept, that same mindset. So I went from working in a recording studio, learning from that. Then I did part-time AV work at different hotels. Then I volunteered doing the live broadcast for my church. And then I was able to just mix all those things together. So when I saw the job posting for NASA, it listed what they wanted you to have, and I had touched on every single one of those things, whether it's for space or not. It's still audio being pushed through a console.
That's great, because you're absolutely right. We try to build one brick at a time in terms of your knowledge and skills, and your entire career ends up being that same sort of process of learning some new things and improving the things that you already know and are able to do, and being prepared to take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves.
Right. That's exactly the way it went for me.
You, when we were talking earlier, before we went on the air, you had talked about the mixing and mastering process, and it probably hasn't occurred to most of us that there is a mastering step to podcasting. Can you talk a little bit about what that entails in this context?
Yeah, so for that, you just want to make sure that you're hitting like loudness standards for podcasting, which is different from music, which is different from a lot of things. So that way, whenever someone's listening to it on Spotify or Audible or Apple Podcasts, that it's coming through clearly and everything is mixed the way that you want. The intro music is not too loud. So that's what comes through when you're doing the the mastering process, making sure that the loudness standards and I think Apple is very specific about it. So you may have to, make sure that you're hitting those meters, or else sometimes they won't push your podcast out if it sounds bad.
Yeah. So, how different are the standards, the loudness standards for the different outlets?
They're not too different from one another. I think it's like between like neg 18 and neg 16 LUFS. So it's not that big of a difference. So I usually try to get it in that same ballpark, and that way it'll at least be good enough all of them. Because if you try to do it strictly for the one that's neg 16 and then try to do it strictly for the one that's neg 18, that's just too much time trying to basically remaster the same episode. So you might as well just find a little sweet spot and make sure it's in between those two, and you're good to go.
That makes sense. So, so what you're doing as a team is all remote.
Everything is remote.
That's awesome. Where were you when remote work really hit you, and how did you adapt to it?
So I was working at NASA when remote work hit, and it was interesting because it made part of my job extremely difficult, because I didn't have access to the tools just yet to be able to fully do remote work from my home, because using the NASA computer, there's heavy security on that. And so having to figure out how to cast into the computer at NASA, like it was a lot. But I would still have to go on site at NASA for live shows, because you can't mix something like that from home.
Right.
It wouldn't sound good, too much latency. That's a nightmare. So I still needed to be on console. So I would do that, like, I'll go in just for that particular show, and then I'll mix that show, and then I'll leave. So for the podcast, we still kept it going, but that's when I started learning about other softwares. We would use Zoom audio. I would use Riverside or other recording audio, how folks call in for that, and then get that tape. And I can mix that at home. I have Pro Tools on my computer, just mix it right then and there. I don't need to go on site to do that. So that's how I learned the different ways and the tricks and tips on having people use an actual mic, or use their earbuds, or try to talk directly into their phone as a voice memo, just some way I can get clean audio.
This person is wishing everyone good luck with everything. You are such an inspiration. And then they ask, have you any thought about, or have you put out any training showing others how to do this job from home?
I have thought of That's a really good question. I have in the past done brief videos. When I worked at NASA, I would do a Facebook Live sometimes and show my setup of what I'm doing for that, but I haven't done it yet for podcasting. I think that would be a different technical task, trying to set that, because I'm not really using a board. I'm just using my computer, but maybe something where I could record me editing something, or using different tools, or like setting up something and then posting it out later. Something that I probably can do in the near future.
One other thing, you apparently are a very successful TikTok personality as well, right? You got something like 300,000 followers.
Yeah, the pandemic boredom hit hard.
So check her out on TikTok. We're so grateful for your time and you sharing your experience with us. We're so proud of the work that you've done, and appreciate all that you give back to the school and to our students here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
That wraps it up for today. Remember that we are here every month, ordinarily Monday of week 4. So keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for what's coming up from one month to the next. We'd like to thank the Audiovisual Technologies class here in the show production program, and their course director, John Cost, for providing all of our production support. It's been a great pleasure working with you all, and we really appreciate the time, effort, and care that you put into us. That's us for this month. Hope you have a great afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you the next month.